Welcome to the DJ Insider Podcast, sponsored by Amplified Events.
It's the only podcast where we break down insider information from our weddings, experiences, and advice from over 15 years in the wedding industry.
We're your hosts. I'm Mike Kane, owner of Amplified Events.
And I'm Chris Zart, general manager of Amplified Events.
Let's get into it. So we're back. Welcome. We have a new guest on the podcast. Welcome, Lori Horst.
Hurst. Yes.
Hurst from Petite
Fleuriste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, what services you offer.
Yeah. So I consider myself a wedding and event florist, right? I don't do day-to-day deliveries. I have no desire to do day-to-day deliveries. I love big events. I love working one-on-one with people. So I do basically whatever designs you want. I really like to involve myself in the planning process to get a full idea of sort of the day. And I say the day because I say wedding and events. I would say I'm 98% weddings, which is really what I like. Because I like to get to know people as I work with them, and I kind of like to get an idea of their personality. And I think that like their personality finds their way into like all designs of a wedding day, right? So you kind of get a vibe for that, get a feel for what the wedding's going to look like, season, venue, colors, everything. Come up with their color palettes, their designs, right? Do the whatever it is that they're looking for. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, I assume you don't grow your own flower. You source out, or?
So it's a hobby. I like to consider it at this point. I grow sunflowers. It's a very minimal amount. My aunt lives about 5 minutes away from me, and she is she's on like 10 acres of land, and I have this little like 20-foot by like 60-foot area that I farm flowers. So again, it's a very small amount that I've started to dabble in and really enjoy. And again, it's more of a hobby at this point, but I do use some of the things for my weddings, and then I do try to get as much local as possible at this time of year. But yeah, most stuff is sourced in.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Do you ever run into like issues or problems with like, supply, or like that's out of season, or?
Oh yeah, that's
going to be expensive and rare,
No, that is by far the most stressful part of my job, right? That's one of those things where you're dealing with flowers. People are like, oh, your job must be so much fun. It must be so easy. It has its stressful points, right? There's a lot of things with flowers that you don't think of, right? I always like to say, like, use the example of like a bakery. And maybe I'm wrong, so bakeries don't get mad at me. But like,
we'll have some,
right? I know. But like,
claims, yeah.
Sugar is always the same. Flour is always the same. You mix them together, you should get the same result, right?
Add heat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at least that's my understanding of how baking works. But with flowers, you don't know, like, if a dahlia gets more sun, it's going to be a different shade of burgundy than what you're looking for, or like, right? So things aren't always very consistent. And then you also have the issue of my favorite example. It was 2 years ago, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. The country of Ecuador had some major like economic, political issues, and it was basically like the country was almost in like throwing a coup, and they were like shutting down all their roads. They wouldn't let cargo get to the airports. A big majority of roses that come to this country, like in the 90%, are coming from Ecuador. So there was like a 2-month time period where I didn't know if my roses were showing up. Wow. And it was like the farm was like, we're doing everything we can, but we know that your roses are on a truck and the people won't let them get through. We hope they get to you in time. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, so you really just don't know sometimes what's going to happen. And it's like, right, you scramble and you figure it out. It's great fun, right? Especially when it's totally out of your control. I'm like, okay, well.
I'm trying to imagine, because we don't have anything really close to that DJing. Like sometimes it's difficult to find a song.
Sure.
Or a right version of a song, or it's difficult to access that without the internet, that kind of thing. But I just can't imagine I have to import music from another country.
Yes.
And just hope everything shows up. And the fact, too, that, like, if the music showed up damaged, due to customs, searching it or something, there's just so many things.
It really is. Yeah. And then the other thing, too, like right now, I think FedEx is my worst enemy.
Oh, no.
I get certain things shipped directly from farms. So I have farms in California I'm ordering from, Colombia, Ecuador, right? And they're all going, I know my FedEx route, it's going to Miami, to Memphis, to me, and like, or Indianapolis. And There's something about the Indianapolis FedEx location that just loves to hold my boxes for an extra day. And like, there's just nothing I can do about it, right?
No.
So it's fun, but it makes things interesting. It keeps you on your toes, and sometimes you got to get creative. It's fun.
So how'd you get into this? Like, kind of what got you into it?
Yeah, so it was actually a part-time job in college.
Really?
Yeah, I went to school in Michigan, Grand Valley State in Grand Rapids, and I was there on a softball scholarship. And I ended up graduating college in 4.5 years. So it was that last semester where I was like, got a lot of extra time on my hands, no more softball, no more training. I ended up picking up 2 part-time jobs, one of them at a flower shop. And then I had a summer internship in Chicago because my degree is actually marketing and economics. I have 2 degrees with a minor in Spanish. And I had an internship downtown Chicago, and I hated it. And I was like, office job is not for me. So then, I got that part-time job at a flower shop, and I was like, I think I can do this. So graduated, ended up going into Chicago. I think I went to like 50 different flower shops, walking around for like 2 days straight, handing out my resume. Ended up getting like 1 call back from a shop in Lincoln Park, and worked there for 10 years training. Wow. So, yeah.
And then just from that, just kind of getting weddings.
Yeah, so I kind of started my business slow. I think I had been working in the flower shop in Chicago for like 5 years, where I had started doing like, my first year, I think I did like 5 weddings. And then the next year I kind of like grew every year. And then from there, just kind of, went full time with my business and stopped working in the city. But yeah.
Very cool. What do you love about it? What's your favorite part?
There's a lot of favorite parts. It's hard to like pick one, right? Because I have 2 kids, right? They're 4 and 6, so they're little. So I think when like looking at my life 10 years ago, right? I've been married for almost 10 years now. It's kind of everything that I would want out of my life right now, right? My shop is my garage, so I work out of my home. So I'm at home for the kids. I get my daughter on the bus every day. I get to take her off the bus. I got to volunteer and read in her classroom last week. So I get to make my own schedule, right? So that part is great. I like to be by myself, which sounds, I don't know, some people don't agree with that. I spend a lot of time by myself, and I enjoy that. So I'm like at home with my own thoughts, like being creative, which I'm really, I enjoy that part. And then I get to work one-on-one with people, right? Like I don't do well in a group of 50 people. I just totally shut down. But you give me one person, like right now, in a room by ourselves, I do good. So I like to work one-on-one with like a bride and groom, or bride and her mom, or whoever, right? Do the whole planning process, and then actually get to see that, right? See it come to fruition, see everything come together. And then on the final wedding day, and then I love getting galleries back to like actually see everything come together, right? So just the whole process of planning and actually doing is great. Yeah.
Awesome. Did you have any weddings this past weekend?
Yes, I had one small one. I got to go up to Journeyman's, which was nice to have, just a quick drop off, because I needed a little bit of a break. It's been, I feel like you hit August, September, October. I'm like barely surviving, just getting by. It's been really great. Good.
And we did one a few weeks ago at the Goose Pavilion there.
Yeah, I wonder how did that day go? That venue is awesome.
It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was like the perfect like weather-wise.
Yeah.
Like we went out when they were doing dinner, we went out and just enjoyed the sunset. Like it was just so nice to just sit and enjoy just watching the sunset over the water there.
I need a friend to get married there, because I want to hang out there. That's where I'm jealous of your job, that you get to actually like experience these venues, where I'm like there by myself usually, and like I'm gone before anyone gets there.
Well, I mean, your display is absolutely beautiful. You did, it was like a ceremony kind of like altar kind of setup. I don't know what you would call that.
I refer to it as pillars. So it wasn't like a full arch, right? You had like the pillars on each side, and it was, especially for that venue, right? They had, for anyone who's been in there, even before it was finished, you have the gorgeous arch windows, right? Yes. So we didn't want to take away from the actual architecture of the building and the brick and everything, but she wanted a statement piece. So it was fun to have something that kind of framed the window without taking away from the view of the lake and the beach and everything.
Well, and they've done a great job. They updated the building. It's absolutely gorgeous and beautiful and easy to get in and out. Food was amazing, of course.
Was it? Yeah, I assumed that was going to be good.
We ate in the restaurant downstairs, and then we ate again upstairs.
Did you?
It was like
nice.
everything was top notch. But they redid it, and it's kind of that like Art Deco but modern style. It was just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it's one of those venues too where it has like that raw vibe to it. So you can do whatever you want with it. But at the same time, if you don't do much, it's still really pretty looking on its own.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite.
Yeah. And dance floor wise, it ended up great. I didn't play anything. The couple was a little older couple, and they kind of knew what they wanted, and they knew their crowd. And so I didn't play anything that was recorded after like 95.
Awesome.
So it was all like 80s, 70s, 60s kind of music.
I love that.
Throughout the night. A few 90s, but it was great. It was a great, really fun dance floor, great party. Stayed all night. It was cool.
Awesome.
So it was really cool to see. I would love to get some pictures from that. We can post them so people on the podcast
Yeah.
can
Oh,
see
for
what it
sure.
looks
I
like.
know.
But,
I'm excited to get those back.
I
Yeah,
saw you
they had a
posted
top.
that snap of us. Thanks for tagging
Yeah,
us
of
in that.
course. No, because that's one of my favorite things too. Like, I don't get a lot of interaction with DJs, right? Like, not you set up early, which I love. I do. Because again, like I do spend so much time by myself that if somebody else is in the building with me while I'm setting up, I'm like, okay, it's good. I could be a little bit social today. But then I do if I have music in the background as I'm working, it makes me happy. So thank you for being one of those who gets there while I'm setting up.
I do the hurry up and wait philosophy. I get there plenty of time because you never know what's going to happen.
No.
You know, set up, make sure everything's working, and then, okay, we'll chill.
And yeah, I do the same thing, or at least I try to, right? Like I do not want to be there when the first guest arrives. Like I want to be long gone. I don't want to be like, I don't want to see people, like I don't want people to see me work. I don't know what it is. Well, because then they just sit there and they stare at you and they watch you and you're like, okay, you're going to sit there and judge me and think I could do that. I don't know.
No, I'm the same way. And that's why I set up and I disappear.
Yeah.
Because typically it's a pretty stressful day and people are stressed and then they see you and they're like, you. And they're like, do you have a microphone? They start stressing me out.
Yeah.
And I get in my head, even though I do this all the time. So what I do, I set up and I disappear. I go grab a bite to eat, whatever. And then we come back up in time for cocktail hour, dinner, dancing, whatever, ceremony. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we have that same thing where I'm like, and I get into, I call it work mode. Like I'm pretty likable, charismatic, chill guy. But if I'm working, just like, don't bother me. Like I am working.
I am the same way. It's so funny. And so my husband will come with me every once in a while on setups. He's my like muscle guy. If I need somebody to do some heavy lifting, he'll come with me. But he'll ask me a question and he has to ask me like 6 times because it's a good thing and a bad thing, but when I focus, I hear nothing around me. There's just nothing.
I have selective attention
and that's
disorder,
what yes, right. But it's just like my focus, like I'm super good at focusing, which is great, but like there could be somebody on fire next to me and I have no idea what's going on, right? So he'll like walk up to me and be like, oh, never mind, you're like in the zone. I'm going to let you be. I'm like, appreciate it. So, yeah.
My wife notices about me and she always does. She knows if I'm focused on something and my peripheral vision, she'll be doing crazy dances or weird faces, and she just sees how long she can go without me noticing because I just don't notice.
But yeah, my husband's gonna have to listen to this, and he might start doing the same thing because it is like, yeah, when I'm in the zone, that's it. But yeah, and then because I feel like the people who love to like come and ask questions are the parents, the ones who like have to be there early, especially dads. Yeah. But they're like, I don't know what to do with myself. Let's go see if that person needs help. Yes. And I'm like,
they ask you questions about the equipment or questions. I used to DJ, or my buddy used to DJ. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I know.
I'm trying to work right now. I'm trying to set up.
Well, I was doing a wedding setup at Sandy Pines 2 weeks ago. And the DJ was there physically setting up. And the dad was like, oh, I don't know. That looks like a tripping hazard, pointing at a wire. And I looked at him and I was like, I think the DJ's still setting up. And he was like, yeah, don't worry. I'll have it covered. I'm like, they're not going to leave a a hazard for you.
Tape,
you'll be okay.
It's going to be okay. That's the last thing you want. Yeah, a micromanager that you didn't expect.
Just leave me alone.
Well, that's not how I would run sound. Okay. All right.
I'm so glad.
What are some of the challenges about kind of the work you do?
Again, some of the challenges, right? Getting things in. That's my biggest challenge, right? Is making sure what the bride wants is going to come in, the quality really that she wants, right? And I try, the way I do my business too, it sounds really bad, but in my contract, it's very well listed out. Like, I can't promise a single thing to you, or as far as like specific flower goes, right? Because again, I used to make the joke, unless you're looking for roses, until, I couldn't get roses.
And then I'm like,
shoot, well, so much for that joke. So the way I do things too, I really like to get, like I said, I like to get a vibe for the day, and I really like to work with color palettes, right? And that way, if something specific comes in and like the quality is bad, or it did get caught up in customs, because a lot of stuff is coming from outside the country, or I don't know, it just isn't looking how I expected it to. I make substitutions and you got to do things on a whim, right? So I like for my clients to trust me and to know that like overall the feel is going to be there. So like that's the biggest, one of the biggest challenges, right? Just like working on that like trust with a client. Like trust me, even if it isn't exactly what you thought it was going to be, it's going to look great. It's going to match your vibe, right? And I seem to do a good job with that, I think. I mean, most people seem to be pretty happy. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest challenge.
Do you ever have to like, oh no, this didn't come in. It's like the day of or day before, and like drive around, see if I can find something in this color. Oh, there's a wild field, you know. Like
I've been there. I've done that. Sometimes I would hate for clients to actually know some of the things I've had to do. Oh, I've been in like a friend's mom's backyard being like, so I really can take all these peonies? You really don't mind? Oh yeah, it's happened. I also keep like a stash of dried elements just as like an emergency backup,
sure.
Just in case. And then I have like, there's a couple flowers that like, you just know they're a little bit more temperamental, or they bruise easier, or you've had more issues, like anemones. I don't know if you know what anemone is, but they're the really pretty little white flowers with the black center. When brides like them, they love them, and they have to have them, right? I have this whole tote of fake anemones that I spent a whole lot of money on. So that's one of those that like, yeah, if for some reason they came in old because the grower decided to send a batch of bad ones, I'm like, I'm just going to tuck a couple of these like fake ones in. They're so real looking that you'll never have an idea. And right, it's one of those, sure, it ate up into profit a little bit, but the bride's happy, so I'm happy and everything's good. Yeah. But yes, the crawling around in someone's backyard with a pair of clippers it's happened.
I mean, that's you pay a professional to kind of get the job done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. I'm like, I don't care what I have to do. The job is going to get done. That's exactly what it is.
We have that all the time where we're scrambling. Oh no, speaker. Oh no, power went out. Oh no, we don't have the right song. We got to go rip it from YouTube or whatever. You know. Let's see. You see any like trends or traits or things that you feel like all of my best weddings have these things in common?
I feel like one of the trends that I tend to follow more is color, right? And because I do think that a lot of weddings are very unique, especially in decor. And there's certain things that I like to do that I kind of push because I think they're pretty. And I always joke too with brides, like, when was the last time you threw a party with 200 people? Right. So some of these brides, especially when it comes to flowers, they're so overwhelmed that they really come to me for guidance where they're like, I just don't know. I think I like this, but I'm not sure. Right. So trends when I really pay attention to are colors. Like I love the like terracotta color going on right now for the fall. Sorry, any brides who do this, but like people love white and blush, right? Yeah. It is still super trendy to do white and blush. And I'm just a bright color person. So I try to like, are you sure you don't want to add some coral in with that or some like hot pink or whatever? But yeah, right, color-wise, people still love their classic white and blush. But I do like the more folly colors that are starting to show up a little bit more right now.
Orange.
Yes, it's so pretty. And I just find too that like when I'm walking through like a hotel lobby with a thing of bouquets, like that tends to get a lot of recognition too. They're like, wow, that's really pretty, more so than like an all-white bouquet, right? But again, you have to kind of match your venue and, right, you're not going to do burnt orange terracotta in like the Grand and in Crown Point, right? Like it's white and golden. You want to kind of match, right?
Yeah.
You got to, all the vibes got to go together. So.
In terms of your kind of work style, because I have, I'll take any client, of course, but there's clients that like really know what they want, and there's clients that have no idea what they want, and then there's clients who kind of know and then will let me do my thing, and there's different styles and preferences there. I'll work with anybody, of course. Yeah. But it's always hard for me when they have no idea. And some people really like that, and they can just do their thing. I really like to have at least a good idea of like, you like this, you don't like this. You don't have to come up with everything, but give me a good sense to go off of. And then the rest I'll be figuring out from your crowd the night of,
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. Like I like a little bit of guidance. I tend to get the most stressed out with the client who's like, I don't really care.
Yeah,
but I'm like,
right. You do care.
But you do, though.
You do.
I'm pretty sure you do. And there's a very small amount who really don't, right? So like whatever you do really is fine. Like the one that we worked at the Dunes. Katie really was she really didn't care.
Yeah.
Which was cool because it was her mom. I actually worked, I think, more with her mom because she's like, Katie's stressing me out. She says she doesn't care. And I'm like, what, me and you, like, we'll figure it out. Like, no big deal, right? But yes, the ones who are like, I don't care, they tend to actually care the most, which is funny. Yeah. And then you like,
it's
they
a
really
reactive
stress.
kind of. It's not a planning for, which it equals more work and stress the day of for me.
Yes,
for
sure.
That's why, it's.
Yeah, and right, I have to figure it out before the day before, right? It's not like I can, go picking things the day of. Yeah, so I like the ones who have a little bit of an idea. And again, I find a lot of people I work with know maybe 3 or 4 types of flowers, right? Which is fine. And that's where I really like Pinterest boards. I realize that doesn't work as much for you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like, I always say that Pinterest boards are like, at least in my end of work, they're like a necessary evil, right? There's so many photographers who like to put different filters on things. So like certain things don't exist. Like that doesn't actually exist in that color because there's a weird filter on it. Like we can do something similar, but it's not going to be that. But I do find that in looking at somebody's Pinterest board, even if they don't see it, there's a very common like theme that goes through it. There's I can find the similarities between that bouquet to that bouquet to that bouquet that you might not see, but in looking at that, I think this is what you're looking for.
Yeah. Your florist brain starts like,
exactly.
Okay, this, I can use that this way. And that kind of,
Yep.
I get a better sense of what you're going for here.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So if somebody comes to me and they're like, I don't know what I want, then I'm like, okay, let's figure out colors. Or at least what you think with colors. Because even like, I don't expect them, if they're getting married in 14 months, it might totally change.
Yes.
And it doesn't happen all the time, but it does, where they're like, you know what, we scratched the color palette we picked out. And I'm like, cool, well, at least we have an idea now for like design. Let's revisit the colors. Like, it doesn't have to be set in stone.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I don't like to do music meetings early. I want to do it just before the wedding.
Yeah.
That way it's fresh. Especially, there's a lot of music that comes out.
Right.
Popular trends. People send us TikTok videos all the time. They want this song. The hardest ones are when it's like some random dude who's just recording himself doing a cover of some song. It's a popular song, but it's that guy, and that guy's not a published artist, so I can't purchase his music. And so I got to take that potato quality recording he did with his cell phone, and I got to play that. And I'm like, that's not going to sound great over the speakers.
Yeah.
But most of the time people don't notice that kind of thing, but I do. But
that's exactly what it is, right? Oh my gosh, that's where like there's certain designs that I do and I can sit there and tweak all day long. And somebody's like, it looks great. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't see that. And you don't like, right, when it's your profession, you're just like, but it's not perfect. And it's just eating me alive inside.
Sound so much better. Yeah.
It could look so much better. It could be this or, oh my gosh.
But there is that teaching element to it. And I actually like that. I like to teach, but I don't want it to be like a guessing game. How about this song? No, I don't like that. That's not.
Yeah.
I don't really care. Well, you do. I'll show you. I'll show you. Too.
Yeah.
But there's times when they really don't, and that was definitely one of those ones. And they're like, yeah, we're cool. Here's some stuff we like. Here's some stuff we don't.
Yeah, I know.
Ended up great.
Yes, but the added stress that it is, because you're like, but I think I feel like you start to overthink it, right? You're like, I think you do care.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a people pleaser. I want to do a good job. I want to provide an excellent level of service. And the less time I have to do that, the harder it's going to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I find that tends to be, the more last minute changes, the more that will go wrong. Mm-hmm. Typically.
Yeah.
If there's a last minute switch song change or, actually we're doing this and stuff. And like, we're literally lining people up and, that was new this. We're always going to do that. We're going to do our best with that, but it's more likely that something will go wrong because there was no, there wasn't a planning process. There wasn't any checks done. It's just, I hope this song works. We're good,
Yeah.
That type of thing.
I always like to joke with my clients, and it's not a joke, but I make it seem like a joke. Like, I don't like surprises the day of a wedding. So
flowers don't work this way.
If anything changes the week before, you need to contact me. Please.
Give me time to go to a backyard and clip something.
Yeah. Or even just the smallest things. Like I showed up to a wedding setup a couple weeks ago, and I had quoted out, I showed up with 14 vase arrangements, and she had 15 tables. And I was like, and we're going to split some of these up, and we are going to design a 15th on site.
Wow.
Like, you could have told me.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my favorite, right? Or like they show up and you're like, oh no, we decided against this. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Have you had experiences, any wild or crazy things, setting up, tearing down, being at weddings?
Yes. Do I want to tell those stories? There's certain things where, and I find that a lot of professionals will do this, where like, you have a client who asks you, oh, can you do this? And you're like, absolutely. And then you leave and you're like, so I think we can figure out how to do this.
How are we going to do that?
How are we? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go for this story because
Yes.
I had this season I had to do a chandelier in a banquet hall, and I had never done one before. And I had picked a couple. I'm friends with quite a few florists, right? And we have a couple, like we get together a couple times a year and pick each other's brains on stuff. So I picked a couple of friends' brains on like, how do you do this? What's the best way to do it? And I had never done one in a banquet hall, which is a whole different game than like a tent with a post or a whatever that you can tie something to. And my husband is my engineer, right? So anytime I need, he's also my carpenter, right? I have a couple different arches I offer, and anytime I do anything like that, he builds them for me. He like engineers everything for me. So like that day I was like, listen, got the chandelier. You got to come with me. And he was like, okay, sounds good. I think we had made 6 different trips to the True Value next door to try to figure out how to hang this thing. We had it up after like 2 hours of like finagling and messing around with it. And then it came like crashing down to the ground. No. And I have this like way of dealing with stress where I just get really quiet. And my husband like saw the look on my face and he was like, I know you're having a panic attack. We will figure this out. We will get this thing hung. It worked out perfect. Attempt number 2 went great. Like everything went off without a hitch. Nobody knew the difference. Nobody knew the wiser. I had the photographer text me a picture the next day. It was still hanging, and I was like, okay, I didn't sleep at all that night. Like in thoughts of like
during the speech, the first dance.
Until I got that picture the next morning of like everything went great. I was like, okay. So yeah, things happen. Sometimes you got to wing it a little bit, and yeah, that was one of probably the most stressful times in my career where I was like, I'll figure it out when I get there. Yeah. Thank God for my husband though, because it
really helps to have that other person. We usually work with assistants.
Yeah.
And some of it's times to like, cover stuff to help us set up, tear down, but also kind of talk you off the ledge when you're so stressed.
That's really what it is.
Keep you refocused and bounce ideas off you and help you, smooth things over, because it really is that you come up with this big day in your life and you put your best plan together, but then things happen and you just gotta, twist, turn, finagle, do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Right.
And that's really what it takes because the event must go on. The show must go on.
Right. Yeah.
And if you forget a line, doesn't matter. Just jump in,
Yeah. And that's really where like the creativity, right? Like, sure, it's a creative job, but the creativity is like, okay, attempt number 1 didn't work. How are we going to make attempt number 2 work? Right. Yeah. Like, and that's also, I think I like it sounds, I don't know, maybe silly, but like the excitement of the job, right? Of like, I will figure this out. Yes. I'm a very determined person and I will get it. If it's not like getting a structure to hang or a structure to stand or I don't even know. The things that I've tried to pull off are good. Yeah, because I also love the like, again, I offer a couple different structures for ceremony sites, right, as far as arches go. And one of my favorites is, oh, don't worry, we're going to build our own. And I tell people, like, that sounds great, but you have to be able to give it a good, like, kick and a shove. Yeah. And if it doesn't go anywhere, then that's great because flowers are heavy. And I've sat there, like, with the flowers on it thinking, this thing is going to come crashing down. You're like, I tried my best. I didn't build it. It's not mine. Please stay up. No. Please don't be windy. Please don't be windy. That'd be good.
If couples are looking for a florist, looking for someone to do their flowers for their wedding professionally, do you have any advice for couples looking for florists?
Yeah. So I honestly think the number one thing is you have to figure out how important flowers are to you. But I also think that that's the same with all vendors, right? Like you can find a wide range of what you're going to spend on each of your vendors, and for good reason, right? Flowers are expensive, and I know that, right? Like they're not, if you have a really small budget and a lot of tables and a lot of bridesmaids, like, and I guess that's really what I think a lot of times it comes down to with picking a florist is your budget, right? I know for a fact that I am not the cheapest option, but I offer premium service, right? I'm offering premium flowers. I'm offering, basically, I do a little bit of coordinating day of. I try to keep as much stress off of you. I'm not just dropping things off. I'm doing a full setup for you. So yeah, you really have to figure out how important flowers are and what your budget is, right? If your budget is not that big on for flowers the day of, try to find a smaller shop, or even going to like, Strax has a great option, right? They're going to use your more like mid-grade flowers, your carnations, your fillers, things like that. And if that's what fits your budget, great. If flowers are super important to you and you want to spend most of your budget on that, like, take a look at some of your high-end florists, right? if I'm booked that day, I have some great recommendations of other ones in the area, right? But I think that's a big part of picking your florist, is figuring out first what your budget is, and also style, right? Figure out what your vibe is. And that's where I really like Instagram and social media, right? For as stressful as it can be keeping up on that as like a solely, right, one employee basically company, it's hard to stay on top of that sometimes. But if somebody shows me an inspo photo and I try to duplicate that bouquet, it's still going to look like my bouquet. Like it'll kind of look like your inspo photo, but you're going to be able to tell that it's my bouquet. Like I can go to different you can probably show me a photo of some of like the top 5 florists in the area, and I could probably tell you who made it without actually telling me who made it, right? Like everybody has their own style. So make sure you like that style, right? It's the same with like DJ. If you're like, man, I don't really like this guy's energy, but I'm going to book him anyway. Like, what do you think you're going to get out of him, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it you're paying for that's individual's style.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, it is an art, right?
Yes.
And like, you're not going to ask Picasso to make, a Monet, right? It's just not going to happen.
It's going to come out like a Picasso.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, figure out budget, I think, first, and then figure out your style, right? Like if you're going to say like, well, I don't like this, this, and this, well, that's what my flowers look like. So
yeah, that's probably not a good fit. Yeah,
right, exactly. And it happens.
Yeah.
So
if they've already booked a florist, and of course, let's just assume flowers are a priority for them. Mm-hmm. They have the budget. What advice would you give to them as far as either communication or planning to get the most out of that experience?
I would say trust your professional, right? Like, again, you hired that person for a reason. Trust them. And if they say something's not doable or that might not work or whatever, trust them, right? Like, listen to what they have to say. I would hope that, right, you've picked that person because you trust them and they know what they're doing, right? I've had that client before who was like, well, I want this, this, and this exact thing. And I'm like, okay, well, we can't do that. And they want to know why. And right, there might be many reasons for season or things don't.
Yeah, those flowers aren't available right now. Yeah,
right, yeah. That doesn't hold up out of water. That's going to get bruised. And a lot of it too goes back to like Pinterest, right? Or photo shoots. You can do things in photo shoots that really just aren't going to work well in real life, right? Like you can fake something for 5 seconds to grab a quick picture, but if you were to have it for an entire day or wedding or whatever, it would be a total disaster.
You're just holding a big thing of flowers.
Well, I've done that. I did a photo shoot for the wedding mag last year, and it was an outdoor venue. It was super windy, and whoever designed the shoot, she wanted to have an elevated arrangement outside. We literally were holding the arrangement in place, and the photographer counted to 3, and we ducked down out of the picture really quick and then grabbed it again before the next wind gust came through.
Oh, my goodness.
Right? Like, the picture's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I would never do that design at that venue. Because you're not going to have somebody standing at each elevated arrangement being like, this will work, right? So yeah, if your florist says like, hey, it's not really a good idea to do something tall right there, like just listen to them because they've probably seen the worst.
Yeah. At weddings, there are so many elements that are out of our control, but also out of the couple's control. And there's a lot of elements because they don't do weddings every weekend, that they're not aware of. At their venue, they've already picked. That's already locked in. You're not going to switch venues because we can't do that specific, probably not, right?
Right.
And the same with DJs. Like, that's going to be tough to do because did you know dinner's in a different room or, that kind of, there's elements here that are going to be difficult. There's ones where it's going to be hard to get a good dance floor given the layout where we're going to be. I've had experience at this venue a lot. Like, it's going to be hard to get a good dance floor at this venue because of those factors.
Yeah. And that's where I, honestly, in the beginning planning process, I try to be very honest and very blunt with my clients or potential clients, really, right? Because if they're like, I want this, this, and this, and it has to be like this, I try to, right off the bat, that's not going to happen. Because I'm not going to give you false promises,
Yes.
right? Like either I want these candles at this outside site. Well, they're not going to stay lit. Like honesty, sure. And I've seen the smile, like, you know, face-to-face meetings, the smile, like leave a bride's face. Like, I'm getting married in September. My favorite flower is peonies. And I'm like, not going to happen. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I can't promise it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll try, but there's like a 5% chance that maybe I can get some from Alaska or something like that, right? Like, yeah. So I find as long as you're honest, people seem to be pretty happy with the outcome then.
Yeah.
Like, they know from the beginning what they're going to get, right? Or like, I'm sure it's the same with you, right? Like, we can't get the sound out that way. It's not going to make sense. There's no electricity, whatever. But if you were sitting there being like, oh, we'll figure it out, they're just going to be disappointed day of, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, for me, honesty is always the best policy.
Same.
And if they're not happy with what you have to say, they might not book you. And then, I don't know what, somebody else is going to disappoint them. So, at least it wasn't me.
Yeah. But the same, we don't promise a full floor all night.
Yeah.
I can't control that.
Yeah.
I do my best. And there's a lot of ways that are going to be challenging. I had one where the groom's family, they're like, yeah, we're Amish. As soon as music starts, they're going home. So a whole half the wedding went home because they can't be around dance music. They can't dance. Can't be around. And so, yeah, I was like, I couldn't promise a full floor. There's no way I could have.
Yeah,
you know?
that's
So,
funny. Or you have examples. I still remember when my husband and I got married, the DJ took a list of like must plays, right? And my husband, his taste in music sometimes is just ridiculous. One of his must plays was Phil Collins' Invisible Touch.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, and the must play was like the DJ had to play it from like start to finish. Every single person left the dance floor except my husband. Everyone's like, who picked this song? That would be the groom, you know? So, yeah, I mean, you can't control everything like the
Yes.
groom's horrible taste in music.
And any DJ like that, as part of my client meetings, I'm like, I see that song. I know. I love this song. This is not about whether it's a good song or not. It's about what my experience tells me people aren't going to dance to that.
Yep, well.
And so I'm like, is it okay? Do you want the full song or is it okay if I fade out and cut out if it's not hitting? Most of the time they're like, yeah, but I've had people, nope, play the full song no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, okay. Even if it costs us the dance floor,
Exactly.
costs time, people having fun, no problem. That's what you want?
It's a good time to go get a drink, right?
Right. I love that. For other vendors working with florists, advice for them, stuff you wish they knew, stuff that would make your life easier, better, and improve the overall quality of the day.
With other vendors, especially if for some reason they're going to be dealing with flowers, I like to be in contact with them ahead of time, just so that again,
You reached out to me this summer about that one gig we did, and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was using your backdrop.
yeah,
right?
it works out great.
Yeah, because I hate surprises. For full understanding, I had a garland to put on the backdrop that you were providing, and I didn't really know how the whole backdrop was totally like basically what I could connect the flowers to.
Yes, how you're
right?
going to do this, yeah.
And again, I don't like surprises. I'm not going to bring 1,000 different things for different like setups on a backdrop. So it was hey, let me see this ahead of time. Let me see how it works. So yeah, so I
great.
think that
We
was
met
actually the first time I had to contact a DJ about something to be like, hey, how do I
I'm
do
really
this?
glad you did. It works out.
Yeah, it worked out.
I gave you the backdrop ahead of
super
time.
well.
You set it up for us. We tore it
Yeah.
down. It was fantastic.
It worked great. Yeah, because the timelines were a little bit different too. But yeah, with like cake bakery, I like to kind of know that like, okay, I know the bride said it was a 3-tier cake and it doesn't end up being like a 6-tier cake. So like, right. I think sometimes in the planning process, things kind of get lost in like keeping people updated. So I like to
Yes.
kind of be in contact with people. Right. And the same with like photographers, right? Like I like to kind of know their timeline for the day. Like, oh, if you're going to be there by 11 and you need the bouquet, well, it's kind of important for me to know that I should show up at 11 too. Right.
Yes.
So
I was going to set up at 1. I'm glad
I
you
know
told
exactly
me. Yeah.
right. So I usually try to get find out that information too. And yeah, I don't know. I also just being in contact with other vendors too, because I feel like at least in Northwest Indiana, in this area, people are pretty friendly.
Yeah.
I like to make friends out of vendors. Right, it's nice to run into the same people because I find that I do run into the same vendors over and over, which is great. It makes me happy. Right, like again. When I like to ask brides who their vendors are. When I see your name and like the hair person or makeup person or whoever, like consistently, I'm like, okay, you're gonna have a good day. And then I think the clients like to hear that too, like the reassurance of you've picked a good team, you're in good hands, you'll be fine, right? Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, we have something similar with like the timeline. It always we have our meeting. This is the timeline, right? Then the day of, I check with the photographer, I check with the video, I check with the venue. Because sometimes they met with one and it changed a little bit, and they met with another and it changed a little bit, and then it's like ours is totally off, and everybody's panicked because they think I'm going to go with mine.
Yeah.
So I call it syncing up. Let's sync up here.
Yep.
And what matters, what doesn't, and a lot of times it's like, oh, we're doing sunset photos. I'm like, okay, and food's at what time? So it's like we got to get the food out, and they're going to take them right away, and we're going to pause dancing, or we're going to move speeches back, or we're working together to make sure that all of these things can happen.
Yeah.
Because the timelines aren't synced up because you've had 2, 3, 4, or 5 different meetings, and like you said, it changed a little bit, and they don't always think to update you.
Yeah, it's funny too. I feel like the couple doesn't actually think about that. Like, it doesn't realize that, like, oh, my decision to do sunlight photos now affects your job.
Like everybody's trying to do their job.
Right, exactly.
But if you showed up at one and they were taking, we didn't have bouquets, you would look unprofessional for not having them, even though you were just following the schedule, which was,
Yeah, right. Because I have had that happen before where I had a very organized bride and she forgot to get me the updated timeline. And I don't usually get timelines from brides. It's usually me like reaching out to the venue. But I'm like, she's like, hey, so when are you going to be done with the ceremony setup? I'm like, about a half hour. She's like, okay, well, because we're taking photos there in 5 minutes. And I'm like, I will have it done in 5 minutes.
Whoa. Yikes.
So, that's when it's like, okay, guys, all hands on deck. Like, everyone, like, drop what you're doing. Come help me.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
wild.
but you got to figure too, like if those photos get pushed back, then like what else gets pushed back, and like the ceremony's not going to start in time, right?
Yes.
And it's all my fault.
Yeah, right. And so that's you've just learned. I just learned by doing this that you got to communicate with people. You got to work as a team, and you got to ideally get everybody a win.
Yeah.
And make everybody look great.
Yeah, that's really what it is. And I mean, I've had other vendors step in and help me with certain things. I love to stop. Like, if I have a chance to help another vendor, I'm going to, because I hope that one day if I have an issue, they're going to drop what they're doing, right? Like, and I mean, one example of that, I was working at an outdoor setup, and there was like a whole drapery backdrop, and the wind just actually knocked everything over. Like, it ended up being just a total wind tunnel in there. And I was like, I'm done. You want some help putting those 20-foot draperies back up? So it was like me and my team helping their team. And I'm like, they're like, thanks. So I'm like, what else am I going to do? Like, I can't let this wedding just, I can't let drapery be laying everywhere. Like, I will help you. Right. And that it is like, I feel like you end up making good friends in that, and people who have your back, which is important. Right.
Yeah. I call it we're in the trenches. We're in the same battle.
Exactly.
We're on the same team.
Yeah, like if I find you need help lugging a speaker up the stair, I'll help. Do what I can.
Any other unique or fun facts about experiences you've had, or stories, or anything that you wish people knew about what you do?
I guess, I don't know. One of the things about my job, I really do love my job. Again, for me, I find myself to be a very type A creative, so I like being organized, and which is a little bit different than some people in it, right? I work with a lot of people who are very scatterbrained, and I'm a very organized person, and I kind of forgot where I was going to go with this.
No, just
Don't
fun,
remember.
unique or fun things like that, or stuff that you wish people knew about what you do.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is I would say like 10 times a year, I have somebody walk up to me and they're like, I would just love your job one day. I would just love to do your job. I think maybe when I retire, I might think about doing your job. And I'm like, I'm going to be done with this job by the time I'm ready to retire, because again, going back to the Dunes Pavilion, right? There was I know you said it was easy to get in and out of, but I see an elevator and I'm like, great. This is going to be fun, right? Like, it's a lot of heavy lifting. It's a lot of, I like to call it schlepping things back and forth. It's a lot of cleanup. It's a lot of, me on the ground, rolling around and whatever, right? Trying to get stuff in place. Yeah, and I always joke, too, that's how it's my workout. It's how I stay fit, right? Running up and down stairs with buckets of flowers and weights and things to hold things down, It's fun. It's a lot of work. It's very physically and mentally exhausting, which is, I don't know. Now, I don't think it's something that people realize, right? So for me, the whole creative process is very mentally exhausting. I make the comment, again, working from home, I end up with a lot of distractions, especially with my kids coming in to say hi to me, or my husband coming in to talk to me. Where when I'm making a bridal bouquet, I can't actually hold a conversation. I am so focused on that one thing that I can't talk and do that at the same time. And then I don't know where my brain goes, but it's yeah, it's mentally exhausting. I mean, I had 3 weddings 2 weekends ago, and then I had to go to like a 6-year-old birthday party, and I was like sitting there, like almost falling asleep in the chair. I'm like so done for the day, just so done. But,
I get that same way when I'm trying really focused on throwing a great dance set, you know. And there's a moment when I know I've got them, and I'm like, okay, I can relax, and just enjoy it. But there's just until you get them, it's like this is going to be hard work to try to figure out what everybody will dance to and keep them going.
Yeah.
And people are coming up and they're literally interrupting while I'm like mixing, listening to the beat. Do not want dead air. I don't want the song to end. I don't want to lose energy because you'll lose them. You know, and someone's like, "Oh, hey, this song." I'm like, "Whoa, hold on a second."
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things I do love about how like my part of the wedding day is I really don't deal with people, and I'm much better. Like I don't really have people interrupting me. I don't have people asking me questions, right? And if it is, it's like right when we were setting up the other week. It's just like whatever conversation. It's not about like, why are you doing that? What are you doing? How are you doing?
Yeah,
Can you do this for me? Can you do that? Like, right? Like I can have a conversation while I'm working. That's fine. But yeah, I love not having people around when I'm working. I really do.
Well, it's a distraction, you know. You want to stay focused. You're there to do a job, and that's what you're being paid to do. And so, yeah, you got to get that job done. So we get that same way. You know, it's crazy. It's so wild. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on, and definitely come back and see us. And
for sure,
we really love your work and appreciate working with you.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think if we have any shared weddings coming up or not. I usually try to pay attention, then I forget until it actually gets to be like the day of. Right?
I always kind of like the surprise. Oh yeah,
I know. Well, I always have them fill out a form a couple weeks before asking for like all their vendors, and I look at it when they turn it in. But it's like anything, unless my notes are in front of me. Don't remember. So, hey, if I ever run into you on the street and you're like, hey, I want to update this, or this, and I'm like, email me. I don't know. Unless it's in front of me, I have no idea. I have like 1,000 things going on in my brain at all times. I just can't.
I love it. It's always a fun surprise. And like, yeah, we did that one with you. And I realized that you actually did our other wedding that weekend too with Chris.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then the next day I saw you and your husband after the 5K. So I was like, what's up?
We did run into each other a lot that weekend.
So,
that was a good weekend.
That was really fun.
But yeah.
If people are looking for flowers, to have the experience that you're kind of talking about, what's the best way they can reach out to you and get a hold of you?
Yeah, so definitely, I always hate to say it, but email. I'm an email girl, and again, I screen phone calls. It's really bad with a business, I feel like. But again, I work from home, and if it's not like me blaring music in the background, it's like my 4-year-old crawling up my leg, being like, "Mommy." So email me. I will respond to you the quickest that way. I'm a very organized person, so I like to have people. I'm all about questionnaires. I have people fill out questionnaires, which you can find through my website, or I can send you a link for one if you're looking for it to find out more information on your wedding. My website is lpf-design.com, so that's kind of the best way to find me. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, under La Petite Fleuriste.
Petite Fleuriste.
Yeah. So,
well, Lori, it's been great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And I'm Mike from Amplified Events, and this is Lori from
La Petite Fleuriste.
And we will see you at your wedding.
Yeah.